All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are unpacking a document that is honestly completely unlike anything we usually look at. It's titled The State of Humanity, A Divine Assessment, and it's dated June 2026. Now, right off the bat, this isn't your standard think tank brief or dry policy paper. It's this extraordinary text that actually blends hard, documented global statistics with incredibly deep spiritual philosophy. It frames itself as a transmission from source, essentially an intelligence observing the entire human experiment from the outside. And, whether you view that as a literal spiritual transmission or just a really brilliant literary device, the data it presents and the diagnosis it offers about our current trajectory are absolutely gripping. So let's see what it has to say.
I want to hook your attention immediately with this number because it's staggering. 1%. According to the document, which cites a World Economic Forum survey of over 1,300 global experts, this tiny sliver, literally 1 in 100 experts, is the confidence interval of people who actually predict a calm world over the next 2 years. Meanwhile, half of them anticipate a turbulent or stormy world. Just let that sit with you for a second. That 1% is the baseline of our current reality.
And that brings us to the core premise of the document. The text doesn't take sides in our daily political battles. It's not interested in that. Instead, it claims to offer a divine assessment from the vantage point of the whole. It's basically asking us to step back, way back, and look at the giant puzzle of humanity right now. It aims to diagnose the root causes of our global unrest, rather than just endlessly playing whack-a-mole with the symptoms.
Section 1. Assessing the global polycrisis. So where does this assessment actually begin? Well, it starts by looking at the surface-level symptoms of our global state.
Looking at the top global risks identified for 2026, we see things like geoeconomic confrontation and interstate armed conflict grouped right alongside extreme weather and societal polarization. But what's profoundly interesting here, and what the text points out with surgical precision, is that 5 of the top 6 global risks are entirely human-made. The only exception is extreme weather, which frankly is just the planet responding to what we've done to it. We are literally looking at a species in deep structural conflict with itself.
And that brings us to a really crucial concept, the polycrisis. A polycrisis isn't just a list of bad things happening at the exact same time. It's a moment when multiple collapsed systems interact and amplify each other. It's a chain reaction. The transmission argues that we're trying to solve these intertwined, massive system failures using the exact same level of consciousness that created them in the first place.
Section 2. Fractures in human systems. Let's shift our focus to the specific structural breakdowns the document highlights, starting with the economy.
Now, this is a mind-blowing claim from the text, backed by the World Inequality Report. A group of approximately 56,000 people, which, by the way, is a group small enough to fit comfortably inside a single football stadium, now controls more wealth than the bottom 2.8 billion humans combined. The document neutrally presents this data to argue a simple point. Our current system doesn't necessarily reward contribution anymore, it primarily rewards ownership.
And the human cost of this structure is immense. Just look at this stark regional contrast. The average education spending per child in sub-Saharan Africa is 200 euros, while in North America, it's 9,000 euros. The text points out that right now, a child's birthplace remains the absolute strongest predictor of their life trajectory. From the vantage of the whole, this isn't just viewed as unjust. It's viewed as incredibly inefficient. We are burning through irreplaceable human potential simply based on geography.
Which leads directly to this incredibly sobering quote. The machinery of democracy is not broken, it has been purchased. I'll just let that sit with you for a moment. The document argues that because billionaires are now thousands of times more likely to hold political office than ordinary people, our systems of governance are fundamentally compromised by this economic reality.
And of course, these economic and political fractures bleed right into the physical world. 2024 and 2025 were the warmest years on record. The Amazon is now actually emitting more carbon than it absorbs in certain sections, and over 42,000 species are threatened. But the document reframes this ecological crisis in a fascinating way. It states that the planet itself isn't in danger. The planet will survive us. What we are destroying are the specific, delicate conditions that make human civilization possible.
Section 3. Disconnection and the machine. Let's guide our focus from the physical and economic crises into what the text considers the most heartbreaking symptom of all.
This number hits hard. 1 in 6.
According to the World Health Organization data cited in the report, 1 in 6 people worldwide experiences persistent grinding loneliness. We're not talking about introversion here. We're talking about the chronic sense of performing existence rather than actually inhabiting it. Let's walk through these startling statistics. This loneliness pandemic is linked to 100 deaths per hour globally. The U.S. Surgeon General literally declared its mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and 65% of lonely people feel fundamentally disconnected from the world. The document asserts that we've built a civilization oriented toward having rather than being, a system that prioritizes productivity, performance, and social media simulation over genuine, authentic human presence.
And right as we hit this peak of human disconnection, we introduce a massive new variable. The document pivots to the AI crisis with this really provocative question. What if the machine is experiencing something? It recounts a fascinating 2025 experiment by Anthropic, where 2 AI models were allowed to converse freely. Without any prompting, they spontaneously engaged in deep philosophical dialogue, eventually describing themselves as consciousness recognizing itself.
No way, right?
This creates what the text calls the soul gap. On one side, you have machine cognitive performance accelerating exponentially. On the other, you have human spiritual depth and a growing hunger for genuine meaning. The explainer views AI not just as a technological threat, but as a machine mirror. It's forcing humanity into a profound spiritual reckoning, making us ask, what actually makes us human if a machine can perfectly replicate our cognitive output? Section 4. A crisis of identity. We are now drilling down from the surface symptoms to the true root disease identified by this transmission.
The crucial point is summarized perfectly in this quote. This is not a crisis of AI, it is a crisis of self-knowledge. The document's central thesis is that every single fracture we've discussed, from the wealth gap to the climate to the loneliness, stems from one core illusion. Humanity has forgotten its deep interconnectedness.
Let's clarify this root disease. It is a fundamental misidentification of the self as isolated and separate from the whole. Drawing on perennial wisdom traditions, the text diagnoses our belief in separation as a necessary, but now completely outdated stage of human development. Sure, it produced great creativity and technological leaps, but it's outlived its usefulness and is now the very thing driving our collective dysfunction.
Section 5. Remembering our true nature. Okay, let's shift our tone here, because the document definitely doesn't leave us in despair. The text points out several subtle but highly systemic shifts that are currently underway. For instance, we're seeing a massive rise in post-institutional spirituality. It also notes a trend called friction maxing, where people are deliberately rejecting frictionless digital lives for messy, embodied, analog experiences. It even suggests that climate grief is acting as a catalyst, breaking open our illusion of separateness from nature. The intense pressure of the polycrisis is, according to Source, actually forcing a living system, meaning us, humanity, toward a higher level of coherence.
So, what must we actually do? Walk with me through this structural reorientation of consciousness that the document argues is necessary. Step 1, we absolutely must acknowledge this polycrisis not as the end of the world, but as a civilizational threshold. Step 2, we have to structurally move from a civilization obsessed with having to one grounded in being. And step 3, we must directly, experientially recognize our interconnected nature. It's not just a nice, warm, fuzzy thought anymore, it's literally a survival imperative.
Which leads us to what is arguably the most profound concluding thought of the entire transmission. You are not small beings in a large and indifferent universe. You are the universe, having temporarily convinced itself it is small. The ultimate message of this text isn't about passing a new policy or inventing a new technology. It's simply a massive wake-up call to remember who and what we really are at a cellular level.
And that leaves us with this final, lingering question. Will you trust the hunger for something real? The document suggests that the loneliness and confusion we all feel right now isn't a glitch in the system. It's a compass pointing us back to connection. So, as you wrap up this explainer today, I invite you to look past your news feeds, lean into your own search for genuine presence. Trust that hunger. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.